Welcome back. In this session, we're going to be focusing on Dovetail's RabbitMQ connector. Now, I've covered different topics around Dovetail and also around RabbitMQ, so I think this is a good session to have a look at how Dovetail's iPaaS platform offers a standard connector that you can use to very easily and quickly connect to RabbitMQ. So let's jump straight in and see what it's all about. So we're logged in now to Dovetail's iPaaS platform. And on previous sessions, we've created an SAP to Snap Fulfill, which is a WMS system, flow. So we've got an exposed HTTP endpoint here. We're then doing all of our logic, and we eventually end up where we're calling a couple of endpoints here towards a WMS system. And then we're doing that in order to basically create products. So what we want to do now is I want to demonstrate how we can basically tear down that HTTP endpoint and offer a RabbitMQ so that we can start receiving messages from RabbitMQ. Now, obviously from an enterprise perspective, you might not just have an API exposed here. You may well be feeding a RabbitMQ queue in order to get those messages controlled and robust, and then you can hook up your flow here, in this case using Dovetail, in order to consume those messages and deal with that integration. So firstly, what I want to do is show you the RabbitMQ that we've got set up here. So what we've got is we've got an exchange, an inventory exchange here, and then as part of that we've got a queue here. So we've got a inventory queue that we're going to start receiving messages from. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a message to this inventory queue. We'll be able to see the increase in messages. So we've got messages sat there, and very similar to how we've got this API in Dovetail set up, we'll see that Dovetail will operate in exactly the same way as it did when we had it just as a standard API. So first of all, what I want to do is show you what we've got currently at the moment. So we are posting XML to this Dovetail endpoint, and then from that we're then able to see a result. So I'm going to submit that now, and we get data processed successfully. So we know that this endpoint as it stands is operating exactly how we want. What we now then want to do is we want to remove this HTTP component, and then we can look at adding the RabbitMQ standard connector. And then we can join this up to the filter, and then we'll need to configure this RabbitMQ connector to basically pick up from our queue. So all of the standard settings just need to be configured in order to enable this. Now, if some of these settings aren't familiar, it may well be worth you having a look at my RabbitMQ push to Azure, because we're actually using an Azure RabbitMQ instance here that's been pushed from Docker. So if you want to be able to build a similar solution, you can do that by following that video. I've put the link above, and I'll also put it in the description. So here we need to put our host in. So this is just going to be the IP address of the Docker container, which contains the instance for our RabbitMQ. And then we've got the standard port for RabbitMQ, and then I just need to populate the user, which I've got set up for this particular instance, and then I can start picking up the other details for that as well. So I then need the password, so I'll just copy that across. We're then going to set up the exchange type. So if we go onto our exchange, we can see here that we've got direct and we've got it durable. So if we go back on here, so we've got this direct, we need the exchange name, which we know is inventory. Don't need the routing queue. We do need the queue name. So inventory -queue. Then what we need to do is we've got auto delete. Let's turn that off. Durable enabled, and this is just going to be one way. So there we go. So we've got that. So I can close that now. I can then hit save. And now basically we are ready to deploy. So before I deploy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push a message into this inventory queue. So let's do that now. And what I've got here, I'll bring it on screen. You would have seen this if you've seen my previous video around RabbitMQ, but I've got a very, very simple Studio C# application. Again, if you want to see how this is done, that's covered in the previous video that I mentioned earlier. And if I run this now, what it's going to do is it's going to send a message to that queue. So we've got one message in there, and I'm just picking that up from an input text file that I've just stored locally. And that is literally just representing the same payload as we were pushing to the API. So we can see we've got one message in here, and just to really verify this, if we go to get messages, we can actually see that we've got this XML data sat there. So using that now, we can deploy this particular version. So we've got a current version running in test at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to deploy this one. So we're going to call this our RabbitMQ version. I can then hit confirm, and that will now deploy. So that's now deployed and running. It's green here. Now, because we've already got a message in the queue, in theory, without checking, we should be able to go to queues, and we should see, there we go. Our queue count for ready is now at 0. So if we go to our flow manager, we can look for our SAP, and we can go here and we can have a look at our transaction logs. And here we've got literally a message that's come through today. That's gone through, and that's been received to the RabbitMQ element here. And then we've got a filter that it's managed to hit. Now, it doesn't look like it's got past the filter, so I'm going to have a quick look to see what's happened there with regards to the configuration. So if we jump back on here, we've got an API key piece here. So actually, if we didn't have this, this would flow through exactly as it should. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that for the time being, because we're not dealing with it as an API. It's reading directly from a queue. So it's almost like an internal piece, really, because this is not exposed externally. It's reading directly from that queue. So again, because we've done that, we can then hit save. We can overwrite. And again, because we're using our iPaaS solution by Dovetail, we've got all the version in here that we're ever going to need. So we can always go back. We can stop particular versions. So I can literally stop this version if I want. And then we've got the draft version that we're doing at the moment, and we can deploy that. So we're going to call this RabbitMQ, no API key. And again, you'd probably have proper version numbers here, but it's just for our benefit. And there we go, that's up and running. However, the message has already been read. So what we want to do is we want to resend that message. So again, we can come through to our app. We can run our sender. That's going to run through. And then on here, we should see fairly quickly that we've got our message being received here. So hopefully that should come through. I don't know if that's sent actually. Let me just double check. Let's try running it again. Yeah, I think it did. It's just not. Oh yeah, of course we've got it running. Haha, we've already got it running, so it's going to already be picking that up. So let's go to our, we've got the flow details on here. We'll go to Flow Manager, have a look now, and we should have multiple transactions here now. There we go. So we can now have a look. There we go. So we had our previously failed transaction, show all versions. So again, because we've deployed a new version, we're only going to see the current version on our login. If we show all versions, we see all three. So I did send just a minute ago 2 messages. So we've got the original one that stopped at the filter because the API key didn't match. We've removed the API key now, and there we go. It's gone all the way through to our end process, and that's created that data. And again, the second one has already done the same thing there as well. So what we've done here in a very short period of time, we've actually been able to change quite significantly the way our flow works within Flow Designer, within Dovetail, by removing the HTTP endpoint and our API key check, and we've literally hooked that up directly to our RabbitMQ instance in order to consume messages. And the great thing is nothing has changed. So we don't have to change any of the logic because the data we're receiving is exactly the same. It's just a different endpoint. And that's how powerful Dovetail is as a platform. You've got these various different endpoints you can just plug and play straight in. You could be reading something from some sort of a NoSQL database where you're pulling data out from there on some sort of schedule. You've got things like RabbitMQ, you've got Samba, you've even got the standard API endpoints that we've used previously. And again, it could well be that you're using something that's a little bit older with regards to FTP or SFTP. You can literally remove this, replace this with an FTP connector, and start pulling files and feeding that through as well. So if your business logic is staying the same, but the technology stack is changing, it's very, very easy to do that within Dovetail. Thank you for joining me during this session. If you're interested in learning more around Dovetail's iPaaS platform, or maybe you also want to gain access to see how it will suit your business, please feel free to reach out and I then can assist you in gaining access to the platform. Equally, please feel free to check out my other videos where I look at a host of different middleware platforms and services. Thank you.